Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of The Pivot. This is a series organized by the Northern Virginia Economic Development Alliance and is an eight-part session, eight-part series, I should say. This particular session is entitled Your Next Chapter Starts Now. I know that as in the preparation of this series, and particularly this session, I've gone through a lot of the data and a lot of the stats. Typically, when I lead a webinar, I'm sort of a data loader on the front end as a baseline. I decided not to do that this time because I think it's been well shared in the media, the significant impact of the federal government's decision to retool and resize the government, eliminating hundreds of thousands of positions, which then has a knock-on effect, as unfortunately you well know, to all the government contractors, given budget constraints or budget changes, and even the closing of key federal agencies. And so I skipped all the detail. It's a bit gruesome. I think we're all fairly aware of that information. I will caveat that and say, on the landing page at Nova EDA, over the period of these 8 or so weeks, we'll build a library of content. It will be the presentations and data, in fact, and helpful guides, tools, and even a lot of the tools from the members of the Nova EDA, which are the jurisdictions of Northern Virginia and their offices of economic development. And they've put together individually and as a group through Nova EDA a lot of helpful tools and links and capabilities and sessions. So I would encourage you to visit Nova EDA website, and as well as you'll see listed on that site, all the constituent members of Nova EDA. I'm John Jacobs, I should probably say that, and I'm your host today. I moderate this series. This is, as I mentioned, our first session of the 8 in total. Some of those sessions will be workshops where we really dive into particular skills and platforms and technologies. This one is a panel discussion. We have a fantastic panel together for you today. I'm going to quickly share a few slides very briefly to orient ourselves, if I may. So let me just do that for a moment. The pivot. The obvious punchline of the pivot is the impact that you're experiencing now in your careers and in your field. Yeah, just go ahead and introduce you. You see them on your screen already. Our panel. We have Dr. Paula Caligiuri, excuse me, who is a psychologist dedicated to helping people thrive in their careers. Paula is a distinguished professor at Northeastern University and the founder and CEO of Skillify, which is a platform that helps individuals build cultural agility. Paul is a recognized expert in global talent development and author of several books, including Get a Life, Not a Job. And I think that's particularly relevant to today's discussion. Dr. Nigel Payne is an international speaker, author, and executive coach specializing in leadership, learning, and technology. With a career spanning decades in corporate learning and development, he is the former head of learning and development at the British Broadcasting Corporation, BBC. Nigel is the author of several books, including The Learning Challenge, Workplace Learning, and Humane Leadership. Catherine Radicki Chumley, I think I have that right, Catherine. I may have gotten that wrong, apologies, is the founder and creative director of CatRad Creative, a Northern Virginia-based event firm that designs immersive, joyful gatherings rooted in connection and creativity. Catherine has been an executive with Microsoft and made a bold decision to pivot to an entrepreneurial life, and founding CatRad in 2023, where she gets to pursue her passions. So that's our panel. Welcome, panelists. We are, one last housekeeping item, we'll have a poll, a live poll, which I'll activate now. Well, at least I'll attempt to activate it now. And then we'll have this conversation with our panel toward the middle of the session today. We'll review those results. I will say that the responses are anonymous. So I don't know who's responding or saying what. or choosing which of the multiple choices. But that is what we'll do as a function is, and I'll ask the panel to join me in sort of reviewing that. Lastly, there is a chat function here. So if you would like to make a comment, ask a question, please feel free to do so. And you'll find that, depending on your system, either at the top or bottom of your screen. So let me see if I can begin the poll. Just give me a minute here. And hopefully you now all see a poll. And I will minimize that. So we begin with Paula, but I'll say to all three panelists, please just jump in if you have something you'd like to contribute. I think about this, Paul, when someone loses a role, a job, that defines them. And, a lot of our identity is wrapped up in our jobs. How does one begin to reframe that identity into something that's forward-looking and empowering?
It's an important question. I think a lot of times people wrap their identity in not just the job title, but also the organization. I worked for so-and-so, I'm with so-and-so, such and such company. So both are really important. But in both cases, they don't define our skills, our expertise, our experience, our values. I do a lot of workshops with folks around personal branding and professional branding, and we really kind of make ourselves almost agnostic of the company, even the title that you hold, and bring us back to what are you unique at, and really wrap that into your individual identity and then own it. So instead of saying, my company or my organization created my identity, you can start to do it yourself. So these are my skills, these are my expertise, this is my experience, these are my values. It's amazing how when you start to own it and really control it, we get our footing again.
Nigel, anything you'd like to offer on that?
Yeah, I think Paul is right. There is a time of stumble, and that's okay. Just don't beat yourself up because the following morning you're not leaping out of bed and feeling full of beans. This is tough. It's tough on your ego. It's tough on your bank balance, etc., etc. But I always get people to reflect on three questions or three statements. The first one is, this is not my fault. I did nothing wrong. I just tried to do as good a job as I could. So it's not my fault. The second is, I have talents for the world. This is not the end of my life. This is the beginning of a new chapter. And the third thing is to recognize what I did for my organization before I left. So I made a contribution to this place, and I'm going to recognize, even if they don't, I'm going to recognize it. And that is part of that building block that Paula talked about. That helps you kind of pull yourself together, focus a little bit more on you and your talents, and focus on the positive and the future, and not on all the things that you've left behind. And that helps. It helps. I know it helps. But give yourself a break. Give yourself some time.
Catherine, you went from a major corporation, a senior role, to your own startup. And it's a bit of a different story for you, but when you must have identified with Microsoft fairly strongly over the years. And then what was that like suddenly, being in a just, like a one-room startup for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of reflecting what Nigel and Paula both said, I felt really attached to my title, to my organization, what I was doing, and then to have that, something that you're doing day in and day out suddenly stop, and you have kind of this opportunity ahead of you. For me, it was really scary, right? Like, what am I going to do? And it was, for me, also exciting at the same time of, okay, now to Nigel's point, now I do have this time and space. Let me take some time and reflect and really focus in on, where do I want to put my talents and skills, and what do I want to do with this? Because when one door closes, another one opens, a window opens, and now I have the space to create what I want to ahead of me. So it was scary for sure, and it took time. It took a lot of time. It wasn't a wake up the next day thing and we're going to do this, right? It did take time of reflection and whatnot to get to a point of okay, I want to start my own business and this is the leap that I'm going to take?
I'll offer my own experience as well. I've been on the receiving end of termination. And one of the things I was struck by is the lack of structure in my day, right?
Mm.
Where I mean, I lived on Outlook, right? I knew exactly. I was back to back with meetings. I had that sense of purpose in that role, and in an instant, it was gone. And I had no structure because I never had, didn't have a non-job at suddenly. So, actually, I want to ask that. I mean, just to segue, Paula, how does one, and Nigel in particular, how do we sort of refine our grounding in a daily at a daily pace?
Yeah, it's especially when you're accustomed to a very structured, you get up a certain time, you go somewhere at a certain time, right? A lot of the advice is to structure your day. Take out that Outlook calendar and block of time to send resumes, or block a time for networking, or block time for events like these. You actually work your day through just like you normally would, kind of again focusing on the recreation of what you want to be next.
You need
Next chapter.
targets. You need structure and you need targets. So you say, this week I'm going to achieve, today I'm going to achieve, and make sure that part of it is growth for you, so that this is a great opportunity to try and get another qualification if you need one, or to explore a different avenue, or a new qualification. Think about the things that you want to do and make some space and time to do them. The problem is that when you've got a lot of time, you waste even more. So you need that focus and that direction that Paula talked about, and make sure every day you've achieved something. You look back on a day and you think, well, at least I did this, at least I did that, at least I did that. Get your resume in order. That it's out of date. Make it punchy. Have a look at other people's resumes. Realize that there's a lot of work to be done on that. Just that. If you've got a powerful resume that you can cultivate and craft around different opportunities, just that in itself is a real achievement. So achieve little things and do them every day. That would be my advice.
I'm moving on to a next sort of an adjacent topic here, and I'll ask Paul you this question first, if I may. In your work, you've written and you speak about, and when you have public speaking about alignment of values, personality, and purpose in career transitions. What are some practical ways people can begin that self-discovery process?
Yeah, self-awareness is a big first step here, right? And it's like the how. I think a really good one, there's a few techniques and different things work for different people, so it's a little hard to say this will work for everyone. Sometimes one way is analyzing your patterns. Like, when did you feel sort of so lost in what you were doing? Given your work that you do, your daily tasks kind of thing, like, when do you lose yourself in it? When do you find that sense of flow? When is that, your skills meeting task at hand and you really lose yourself in it? That's huge knowledge for you. That's a really good start point. That means that there's something about that type of task that is putting you in a state of flow, and a really good one to use for constructing your future. Likewise, the opposite. What just depletes you? What do you just like dread doing, and it takes forever and it feels really, really, kind of not comfortable. Another technique that's useful is kind of thinking about non-negotiables. These are the things you could not live without. It could be autonomy, it could be security, it could be leadership, it could be creativity, whatever, like the way of working feels best for you. Those would be your non-negotiables. Um, and then some of it's just truly like trying and being willing to kind of bump around and try a few different things and talk to different people about their roles and see what seems to fit your own, or some combination of the above.
Anybody want to jump in there, Nigel, Catherine? To jump in on that?
I would. Do you want to go first, Catherine? Because I don't want to bump all the
You
time.
go first, please.
Okay. I have a little device which I've used with probably hundreds of people. I ask individuals to find 6 people they know They can be some from work, some friends, maybe even their mother, because mothers know you best. And you ask them to do something very simple. Write down, without thinking very hard about it, write down 3 things you think I'm good at. Just ask them that and get it back to me today or tomorrow. I don't want an essay. I don't want a philosophy. I just want you to write them out of your head. So you've got a potential of 18 things, but you never have 18. They cluster, and they cluster usually to 3 or 4 things, some of which are really important. And 1 or 2 of them are a big surprise. Really? People think I can do that. And that kind of makes you feel better about yourself. Whoa, I am somebody that other people admire. I have attributes which other people respect. And that is a very good building block, because you've come out of an organization, you feel no one has any respect for me. I've been treated really badly. This is one way of gaining your sense of positive self. And if you can gain a sense of positive self, you've got something to build on. And maybe in some of those little comments, there is a nub of a different direction for your life. Whoa, if everyone said I'm good at that, I never really realized. Maybe that's something I can begin to build into a job or an assignment or something else. So just that question, what am I good at? But get people to do it quickly, off the top of their head. And you may find it a revelation. I don't know.
Catherine?
I love that idea, Nigel, because when I went on my own process of self-discovery, I took it as self-discovery and I had to do it myself, right? And I love the idea of connecting with the people around you and asking, what am I good at? Because that's like what Paula said. That's what I did. I sat down and wrote, what am I good at? I'm a big fan of the Clifton Strengths Finder. So I retook that because my strengths kind of adapt and change every few years, and just really understood, what am I good at and what do I want to do? And then again, what are the pieces that drain me, right? In my new job, I knew I didn't want to sit in front of a computer the rest of, for eight hours a day, 5 days a week. That was one of my non-negotiables. I don't want to do that anymore, right? So what career am I going to make out of it so I don't have to do that? But I did take it really, at the time, it was a personal self-reflection and just really getting to understand, what are my strengths that I can capitalize on? What are the things I don't want to do? And then also, as I understood that I wanted to build my own business, where are my weaknesses and who else do I need to pull in order to make this really successful? So that's that. Yes.
I'm listening to the 3 of you, and I'm reflecting on my own experiences a bit. And, the next question I had prepared was about uncertainty. And in my world, in my head, it's also anxiety, right?
Yeah,
Because,
absolutely. Yes.
for example, when I was going through this experience, I could sit there and I thought productivity was pumping out as many resumes and cover letters and hours crafting the cover letter, and it was like measuring success, like like how many pounds of beef you have, because and unfortunately, all that effort created more anxiety because it was root, and it wasn't yielding any fruit. It was nothing. I was sort of transmitting in the blind. And as a lot of folks know, unfortunately, who are listening to this conversation, it is difficult to keep your chin up and face that uncertainty and not be anxious and get out of that pattern. What are your thoughts, folks, on that? Nigel, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. I always say to people that a lot of jobs, sometimes most jobs, are not got from sending resumes cold to organizations. They're from connections and networks. And if you spend all your time head down, I've got to write 1 more letter, I've got to get 26 applications in today, you're neglecting that opportunity. And what I say to people, who do you know who's got a job that you die for, really works in an industry that you find really exciting? Go talk to them, have a word and say, tell me about your job. How could I get into that? Do you have any openings? Would you tell me if you have any openings? And if you ask 20 or 30 people if there are any openings in their area, usually 1 or 2 say, well, perhaps. It just starts a conversation. And many places will want to talk to someone who's kind of guaranteed. If they say, oh, I was recommended by John Jacobs, that counts for a lot more than blind CV. And people will say, I'll talk to John. If John Jacobs recommends you, I'll give you 5 minutes. I'll talk to you. And it's not guaranteed, but it makes you feel better. It makes you feel you're alive. You're in the world, not outside the world, hammering things out on a computer. So go network, go talk to people. It really, really works. And it makes you feel better. Even in itself, it makes you feel better.
Yes, that's true. That's absolutely true. Paula?
Yeah, I was just gonna say there's a technique that I use with my students because I get a lot of, oh, professor, can you help? I'm looking for a job in marketing. And I'm like, if one pops in front of my computer screen, I'll be like, no. So what I encourage my students to do is to make it easy for others to help you. So Nigel,
Yeah.
to your point, you've got this great network, but learn how to activate them, right? So
Yeah.
it's a super simple technique, but it almost always works. If there's a position that they know they would be great for, they send me a note, really formal, Professor Kalajuri, here's the job. I understand that you're connected to so-and-so. Here's why I think I'm really qualified for it. And here's my resume attached. Basically, they make it super easy for me to say, click forward. This was former student, great, take a look. I have been able to help more students that way because they made it super easy for me to help them. And I feel really good to try, So it's just kind of that one little extra step in networking that sometimes people forget.
Great idea. Great idea.
But it's also, I have a healthy appreciation, Nigel, for it's not about head down, banging through, 8 hours a day of cover letters. That's the difference between like grit and resilience, right? You want to make sure that what you're doing is more of that resilience. You're doing problem focused coping, not just trying to make yourself feel better by placating symptoms, and that you're doing something. So
or
really
punishing yourself, Paula. Sometimes you punish yourself. I've got to do 20 of these today because I'm failing. My life's a mess, and that's not a good way, not a good mindset, and it's not a good way to behave. Be positive, just like you're saying. Be positive.
And going back to what you said earlier, John, about like anxiety as well, when I left my job, I was anxious. I didn't have the daily structure around things, and then kind of the emotions of leaving as well. It was overwhelming at the time. And I had a lot of anxiety that I wasn't doing all the right things to continue on in my career. And I had to have this moment where I paused and said, am I anxious about what I think I'm supposed to be doing from, what I was told in school or my family or the structures around me, right? Or what am I capable of doing today? And then when I leaned into what I am capable of doing today, just like Nigel said, that one little thing, I edited my resume one day. I reached out to somebody the next day. That really helped. Instead of saying like, this is the structure that I'm supposed to be doing and I'm not doing enough, it lessened my anxiety to just say, my capability today is that I can write the resume, that I can put together the business plan, that I can update my LinkedIn profile. So that difference between what am I supposed to be doing in that story versus what am I actually capable of doing helped lower my anxiety.
It's interesting, I think about listening to this, and I think about in business, you've got KPIs, right? Key performance indicators, and you got this, and you've got deadlines, and it's almost like you're making progress because you achieved that project, or you've made that step, or you achieved that goal. You have the right, I would assume, and we have the right and responsibility to create our own KPIs. They don't have to be, as Nigel was saying, lockstep and pumping out resumes, because it does sound sort of self-punishing, doesn't it? And I can tell you from personal experience, it feels that way. Moving just to
John, may I
Paula,
just
please.
add, I'm sorry, because this is really kind of important, especially
Please.
at the moment of a job loss. I mean, we've all kind of shared, I think Nigel said about it, this is a major upheaval. Keep in mind that with all coping, there's two sides of it. There's problem and kind of emotion or symptom focused. And so much of what we're talking about is rightfully on problem focused, like, the resume, LinkedIn, getting something done, structure, the whole bit. But there is some of this that was, especially if you were let go and it wasn't an option that, you decided to move on to another opportunity. there is some of this that is out of your control. And when something is totally out of your control, having a little kind of kindness to yourself, emotion focus or symptom focused coping is good, as long as it's positive. So go for a run, meditate, do what you need to do. And not that it's only self-care, because if we're only tilted to every day I'm going to try to just recenter myself, then you're not getting the stuff done. But kind of that healthy balance of positive on both sides. We're saying, because I know this is a really, it's rough. This is rough for all of us who've been through it.
I always say go on holiday for a bit, and that doesn't mean you have to spend a fortune. You can just go for a long weekend or go for a walk, but just get out of your little zone that has become slightly frightening or slightly depressing, and just get out in the air and the sun, and that does clear your mind and help you think and help you reflect, and it takes your mind off the immediate, because it's really important that you don't go into yourself and then go down and down and down. And that's the worst way to behave. Yeah, sorry, Catherine.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, absolutely. Like I had that moment where I was like, I have to leave now and go do this. And I packed my car with my dog and we went to the Outer Banks for, a couple of days. And I was just like, I need to be somewhere else. Bring a journal with you and just see what happens when you're out on that adventure as well. And even if you're not traveling far, there's plenty of parks and beautiful things around, Northern Virginia and whatnot that we can go to and get that space. But highly, 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 highly recommend taking some space and leaving a little bit.
Yeah.
I in my notes, I entitled the next section, From Stuck to Starting Something New. Now, I think I'll throw this at Nigel first and ask everybody to jump in. We talked about learning and reinvention in your writings and your lectures. What kind of advice do you give to somebody who, maybe over 45, sort of, older in their career, and they're hesitant to start something new? How do you overcome that inertia?
I always say do it with others if you can. So if you can join a group, join a class, come together with people, maybe people in the same position as you. I always think that if you're sharing, you realize that everyone is pretty much in the same boat. You are not the lone person in the world struggling with this concept or finding it difficult to do something that new, and have some ambition. I think there's a lot of good value in a bit of dreaming. What would that masters be really powerful for you? Would it really motivate you? So would learning that new skill that you've dreamt about for years, or turning a hobby maybe into a profession, is that available to you? Dream a bit, think about it, explore it. But if you can do that within a group of other people and support each other, I think that can be incredibly helpful. Women are much better traditionally at networking and being together. Men find it more difficult. So, therefore, if you're a man in that position, I would say you have to make up that bigger effort, but you'll find it enormously rewarding to work together on things. And if that means you join a class rather than you do something online on your own, join a class, go meet a group, find something that you can belong to. And that is a great way of just rebuilding your confidence in the world and feeling you're making a contribution. You're absolutely as good as those other people. And sometimes that group can be part of that network that we talked about earlier and can be very helpful in other ways too. So don't do it on your own.
Paula, anything you want to contribute on that one?
Yeah, this, I guess I'm speaking to, if you're an older job changer, John, to your point about, it's going to be a little bit harder because you've done things a certain way for a certain period of time. And Nigel, to your point, we did research on the study buddy effect, that idea that it's always easier to do something really difficult with someone else because you're going through and it's freeing up some bandwidth to go into the unknown. It's also really helpful to reframe a bit and say, you know what? I'm in this class and everyone in this class is 25 to 30, but you know what? I'm pushing 60 and I've got expertise and and perspective that they don't. So I can bring something to this class and I'm going to take something out of it that will be different than all the rest. So almost bring your uniqueness to those new situations. I've actually started a class myself just recently, and I'm in exactly that situation because I wanted an extra credential. And I'm in a group of 20 somethings, and you know what? I just been bringing something different.
Yeah. Yep.
Catherine, you run a business that has the word creative in it. Uh, and how did you sort of find your voice? Did you have to, was there like self-exploration of understanding what was important to you? And how did you make your business unique enough to be successful with your creative voice?
Big questions. Okay, how did I find my my voice? Well, I lot of just self-discovery on things that I want to do. And then I leaned into my passions. I was always doing events on the side for, my family, for everyone. And I was doing events at, Microsoft as well. But when it came to finding my voice, my mother has always said to me, my mother's, my sage advice, she said, the best person to make decisions for yourself is you. And I started thinking about that and more on how I can trust myself. And I came across this kind of parable around this walnut, if you will, and that a walnut doesn't go and get advice from everybody around them and all of these things and then decide it's going to become an oak tree. An oak tree or walnut gets planted and it receives the nutrients around it and the community and the support around it, and then it blossoms to an oak tree because it has it within themselves, right? And so I started being like, what do I have within myself? What is that special spunk, right? And then when it came to differentiating, I started going to all these networking events and I'm seeing the same, my business color is this like really hot, bright pink. I started seeing just the same colors everywhere. And I thought, how do I be loud? I'm the only person in the room running this business and I need 75 people to pay attention to me. And I ordered this hot pink sparkly name tag that I wore so that people would want to talk to me, right? And people would be like, who are you? What are you doing? So I'd also say, don't be afraid when you're going out there and doing this new thing to just try something else. And what feels authentic to yourself, you have it intrinsically inside of you. And if wearing a hot pink sparkly name tag makes you feel really awesome when you walk into a room and gives you that power, then do it. There is no right or way wrong of doing it. And I just think you got to find what is authentically you and what you feel comfortable in.
I want to remind folks, as we have this poll open, this live poll, going to close it soon. So if you haven't had a chance, it's 4 questions. Very easy. You're all going to get an A, I promise. Just if you would answer those, just go ahead and begin to wrap that up, and then I can share with all of us the results of the poll. And again, chat's open. I see a lot of great questions coming in, and the interactive piece is great. Tools and tactics for self-discovery is a topic. I'm going to switch back in a moment to the dreaded PowerPoint, just to show you what those sites look like and sort of what those tools do. Paul, I actually have a question about passion and purpose first for you, if I may. People, I just want to do something I care about. I don't know what. What are they searching for, and is there a process they can go through?
Yeah, I always love when people say, like at the high level, find your passion and go for it, which is fantastic. But what often people don't see is what's behind the curtain, like all those years that Catherine was planning events for Microsoft, and then coming up with the thought process, right? It's oftentimes that like find your passion, find your purpose is really just the intuition, as Catherine mentioned, that like that sense of which direction you should be going in. But then it's often supplemented with skill and experience. And oftentimes when the skill meets experience, and you start to keep like getting more skill, gaining more experience, you get better at it, and you're kind of moving in the direction, so you're directionally correct. That's when people at a later stage of their career can say, I found my passion, I found my purpose. So some people find it very early, but it's not that lightning bolt from on high. It's truly a combination of that self-awareness, practice, experience, trying new things, and keep moving to what feels right. So I'm a huge believer in experimentation.
Nigel?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Paula. People beat themselves up because they haven't discovered their passion and purpose, 3 hours after they've left their job. It doesn't work like that. But I think Catherine's right about growth, that if you 100% have the mindset that I can learn, I can grow, I can change. That's the basis. And so many people have these self-defeating ordinances running through their head. I'm too old to learn. Oh, I've done that job too long to do anything else very useful. Oh, no one would want me anyway because I'm 43. Or some, I've even heard people say that I'm over 30. Oh my goodness, life is over. It's all self-defining ordinances that really hold you back like dead weights. And I think that when you start to learn new things, you kind of bloom, rather like the acorn that grows into the oak tree. I think Catherine's right, you blossom. And then as you begin to explore and move in the world, sometimes you alight on your passion. Sometimes it takes longer than that. But if you see the simple, basic fact that I can change, I can learn, I can grow, that gets you in a really much better space than, I don't know what I'm going to do now. No one's going to be interested in me. It's too hard. So be optimistic and start small. Like, Catherine was talking about little nutrients. You don't need massive explosions of learning. You just need to start somewhere and keep moving. That's really important. I always say to people, just start. Just start. And that is really important. Don't sit in your chair for weeks on end thinking it's too hard, I've got to do that. Just start somewhere. And whatever that might be, maybe just reading a book, maybe reading Paula's book or my book or anyone's book. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just start somewhere.
Nigel, I have to tell you, we do a parallel exercise similar to the one that you said, go out to 6 people, those in your life, and just have them reflect on your best qualities. We do one that's really similar for passion and purpose, and that is asking, and those who are participating can ask, like, as long as it's 10 to 15 people, anyone in their life space, but it has to be diversity, right? It could be your grandmother, your partner, your boss, whatever, like whatever group. And it has to be tell me about a time when you saw me at my best.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, exact same product, like method, but tell me about a time when you saw it at best. If Catherine was doing it, her work coworkers and her family might be saying, well, when you were running events, when you were pulling it all together, when you were sparking creativity. But it's really helpful to have others reflect just the situations if they can't put a word on it.
And think about when you were happy. When were you really happy? What was it that made you feel alive and vibrant? Try to pull these things out of your consciousness. And Catherine's right, that it's about shifting focus. And Paula's 100% right in saying that you need to probe in there and help. Other people will help you, but you have to ask them to help. No one's going to say, oh, I think I could give John a bit of help. He hasn't asked for anything, but I'm sure I can just go and help him. That no one does that. No one does that. So yes, get moving, start. It's really important.
That is go ahead, Catherine.
Oh, one other thing in the journey. First off, thank you for the correction that it's an acorn. I'm saying it's a walnut everywhere, and maybe it's an acorn that grows into an oak tree. I should get that right.
Walnuts only grow into little trees. They don't grow big and strong.
Be the acorn. But one thing that I also found helpful was reading failures of people. like
Yeah.
looking up important people and seeing where they failed. So there's an author, Bonnie Garmis, who wrote Lessons in Chemistry, and it was this
Yes.
best-selling book. And I think she was 65 when she published it, but she failed so many times before. And even like Abraham Lincoln, he failed so many times before he was able to have a successful campaign run and become president. And I, found comfort in that too, saying like, if you're defining like, I feel like a failure, I feel something negative like this, understanding that these successful people, nobody just said like, I'm going to write a book and wrote it and then it was the bestseller, right? That's not what happened. There's failure along the way, and even the people who have success have a ton of failure too. And I found it just so comforting to read those stories of successful people who had faced those challenges. And I just saw a lot of myself in that, especially in a time that I was really down, and it gave me the motivation to keep going as well.
That'd be another great book to read if you haven't read it. It's a fabulous
Lessons in
book, isn't it?
Chemistry, so good.
Yeah, so good.
Would you repeat the title, Catherine?
Lessons in Chemistry. It's a fiction book, and it's
Right.
amazing.
One last book, since we're mentioning books, I read very recently. It's a very quick read, and people will know this, is Admiral McRaven's book. He was at, I think, UT Texas or Dallas, one of the universities in Texas. And the book is entitled Make Your Bed. Because when he was a Navy SEAL, his training, that you had to do something right. If you just make your bed in the morning, this is about incrementalism, Nigel, the point you think you were making too. Do something. If you make your bed, you will have at least accomplished that. And then from that, things flow. That was, I thought, another good book as well. What I will do to the audience, I'll put all these books and links on the landing page at Nova EDA as well. I'm going to quickly, if I could, transition. We'll get to the poll in a sec, but first I'm going to transition to the tools, which means I am going to torture us with my ability to open PowerPoint. So
I do want to call out, John, while you're opening that up, that Lessons in Chemistry is like not a career book. Like it's a fully fiction, fantastic, fun beach read book, but it's like not, if you're going to pick it up in hopes that it's going to like help further your career, you're going to be entertained and inspired.
But it's about hope, though. It's about hope, Catherine, and it's about following your passion in spite of everyone conspiring against you.
That
so
is true.
There is a lesson in there, as well as a lesson in chemistry.
I'm going to quickly, can you folks see the screen?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can see it.
So, and again, this will be on the landing page. Just to point these out, we talked about some of these. We've got 4 in this, you'll see. It's we have high five test. There is a free version, I believe, of that. And I took that myself. It's fairly insightful and helpful. The Ikigai framework is the next one, and that's a rather famous. I'm sure the organizational development people and this panel is familiar with. Sorry, I'm in wrong order here. With Ikigai, this is the one that Catherine had mentioned, right? Which is Clifton Strengths, which is owned by Gallup, and I believe that there's not a free version, but the pricing is not horrible. I think it's $29 for a basic evaluation. I think it's a one-time fee, and then there's a higher level for that. Here's Ikigai, which not surprisingly came out of it's a Japanese sort of self-awareness identification methodology. I'll put it in their words, a self-reflection model that guides you to find purpose by exploring the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. So
last emphasis, what you can be paid for. So it's aligning your passion and your strengths with what will pay you money, and that's very important.
Excellent, and that's Ikigai. And then lastly, we have actually, this is my guide, and we have a ringer, which is Paula, who's the CEO of the company, I believe, that developed this. Paula, do you want to describe what this process does?
Yeah, so it's a free tool. Skillify is a public benefit corporation, and we set this out to help individuals develop their durable soft skills to be effective anywhere or in any new context. So you can go on, you don't have to contact me to use it. Just go on to, it's spelled funny. It's this MYGIIDE, myguide.com, and you can go ahead and use it. The one thing I do want to kind of flag is that we just did a study and found that the competencies, those soft skills, those durable soft skills that are assessed in this, were also identified by leaders in tech as being critical for the future of tech. So for those of you who are specifically working in a tech or tech adjacent kind of field, these are really important because the world's uncertain and complex and diverse and novel, and that's our reality. So yeah, please go ahead and use it. It's free.
I'm going to magically end the poll and share results, I think. Let's see. What do we see here? Do we see something?
Yes, we do. We do. We are viewing
I
the
see
poll
it.
results. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we were 4 questions. Y'all got an A. The first was, what do you most want to focus on in your next life chapter, essentially? And these were discrete, so there were not multiple choice. So we had to pick one. And so we had results. What's the heaviest weighting is finding a role where I feel valued. It seems to be the highest weighting, quickly followed by learning new skills or exploring a new industry. Any comments, folks, on the panel?
I think that's remarkable, and I totally get that. That when you've been in a place for a while and you've got in the habit of being in a place and you haven't been stunningly happy, then what you really want is to feel that people appreciate you. Appreciation is really important, and in some ways, appreciation is more important than top dollar. You know that, and I think you should have that aspiration. The idea that you should accept that I'll just spend the rest of my career with no one noticing me, no one praising me, everyone just tolerating me. I want to feel valued, and I think you ought to feel valued. And learning new skills is linked to that as well. I can explore new industries, do new things, because I want to be valued, and I want to do good work, and I want to have some purpose in my life. These are perfectly reasonable things to have, and not crazy aspirations. So be ambitious with yourself and with your life. And that's what this is telling me anyway, that people want that. So just do it. You know, don't give up on those aspirations.
Paula, Catherine?
I think the feeling valued, sorry, Paula.
No, please.
I just, feeling valued is huge. When I think about what I'm trying to build at my company, also, it's more than just an event planning company. It's a place where people can show up and literally do their best work and feel valued as an employee at my company too. I've been in a position before where I don't feel valued. And I came to this conclusion of like, I'm spending 8 hours a day, 5 days a week doing this. This is a lot of my life, right? And who and what am I doing this for? So that resonates with me a lot. And that just, really resonates with me, and I get it, right? And that it's huge. Paula?
Yes, some of the universal human motivators are a sense of belonging, a sense of competence that you like getting into a state of flow with the work that you do, and a sense of growth that you're learning and expanding. So it's not surprising that these results are suggesting that, but interesting to hang on to that idea of belonging, competence, and growth.
Just moving on for the sake of time here. Number 2 is, which of these best describes how you're feeling right now about your career journey? And that's not trite. I know a lot of you have just had a tremendous shock. And I don't mean to minimize that, but I just wanted to put the question out there. So we see these results. So that was the question, and it looks rather sort of spread between hopeful and ready to explore. Sorry, the number 1 response is frustrated and uncertain. Yes. So Paula, what's your reaction to that? Sorry,
I was just able to
uncertain is 27% of the respondents. Again, these are discrete. Hopeful, number 2 was hopeful and ready to explore, 22%, and nervous but open to possibilities was 20%. But the highest segment was frustrated and uncertain.
Yeah, so it's, again, we go back to we're human, right? Humans, you know, from an evolutionary perspective, our brains and ourselves, we don't like novelty. We like comfort. We like things that are predictable. We put ourselves into states of anxiety when we go into situations of novelty. This is a huge situation of novelty. So what can you do to address that? You know, it's all the things that we mentioned around coping and, you know, problem focused and the emotion focused coping. Those are ways to address that, but it's okay to say that this is a step into ambiguity and uncertainty. Yeah.
Yes.
Expected.
Any more thoughts, or should I move on to the next one just to keep on trucking here? So Nigel, you were right. There was too many questions in this in this session. Apologies for that. But good news, there are 7 more sessions after this.
Exactly.
Number 3 was, how open are you to pivoting into a completely new type of work? Wow, talk about waiting. 56% of you said, I'm open, but I'm not sure where to start. 56%. That's pretty significant when you have, was it 5 options? So Nigel, why don't you start off with that one? Pivoting. So how open are you to pivoting to new work? Open, but where the heck do I begin?
Yeah. I think you begin with dreams and you end up with reality. And the dreams are, I said that before, think about where you'd feel comfortable. Think about people you admire and what they do. And I wouldn't mind a piece of that. So you begin to formulate, populate, if you like, your little universe, your potential universe. And then you pull down realistically. Realistically, I'm not going to be running the armed forces by next Thursday. It's not going to happen, however much I'd like to. So you pull down to things that are realistic, and then you begin to explore. What would the skills be? Can I find someone who's doing that job? Can I talk to those people? So you begin to, if you like, pitter patter around the area. Just gently make your steps until you end up with 2 or 3 things that are really worth exploring in more detail. And that's when you start to look at, have I got any skills gaps I could bridge that would help me? Do I know anybody who could give me some advice or guidance? Are there any organizations I've got contacts in that I can ask if there are vacancies, or how I could get myself ready for those sorts of roles? But you really need to start thinking broadly, because I often meet people who say, I'd never have dreamt I would have ended up here. And it's because they thought big, and they didn't say, I did this, so I'm now 45, I better think smaller and try and go a bit lower and not aspire so much. And you end up really being unhappy. You make yourself really unhappy because you're better than that. So think about think about what you would be better doing, and it gives you hope, and it gives you aspiration, and it gives you a potential future, and we all need potential futures. I think that would be my advice.
Paula, what are your thoughts on that? This is well, maybe I'll do, because we're a little tight here, folks. I'm going to move on to number 4 and your responses. So sorry, Paula, which activity would you most love to spend, or as I say, spending more time doing, or finally try to do in this next chapter? So what activity would you most love to be doing, or now may have the opportunity to do? And this is multiple choice. So let's see where we ended up. Volunteer, look at that, interesting. Top answer, was launching that dream side hustle, 33%. And then behind that, volunteering and giving back to a cause was number 2. Yeah, I mean, is the reality that, if you're coming from a government role or from a major government contractor with tremendous stability in your job, and then suddenly, that side hustle is entrepreneurial, that doesn't surprise me. You would want that. But how realistic, a side hustle is a big shift, is it not? I mean, Catherine, I imagine you were side hustling for a while there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's a huge shift. To also go back to the last
Yes.
point also, like around not sure where to start, and also shifting to maybe I want to start making my side hustle my main hustle. I found it really important to show up places in person. It's easy to send a resume out and for somebody to send an auto response back, via email, but go to your local chambers of commerce, your, like Nova, EDA, the other economic development associations around, your local business associations. They all have business owners, job boards, people who are interested in talking to you. You can understand also, if your side hustle, for me, right, doing events, I got to understand, does my community need this? Is there a gap here for me to start doing this as well, right? I showed up and nobody else was doing events. So I'd also say just show up and try something out. Sign up for something in person and just start talking to people and evangelizing what you intend on doing, and see what people say about it. Also, doesn't hurt to try it.
Yeah. If I may, so I know we're only about a minute left, or so I apologize, but I didn't want to keep everybody over time. I think this has been, well, personally, it's been a very fulfilling conversation, given my own history of having been in similar circumstances, and I hope the audience feels the same. We didn't get to the chat as much as I would have liked. It will be recorded, the chat, and I'm going to share that with the panel, and perhaps there'll be some follow-up separately, if there's time for that. Something I thought about was this quote. Sometimes the best opportunities come from the biggest disruptions. Sounds obvious, sounds trite, but it is true. So I'll say that. There are several other sessions to this series coming up, and it's all in pretty over the next 8 weeks or so. So I encourage you to stay tuned. We designed it so that it's a bit of a snowball effect. So we start here and we get more specific and we get bigger. So I would ask that that you perceive it as a series, not as a one-off. And I think you'll get greater value from that. And also visiting that landing page at Nova EDA. Next session is June 24th. Career pivot strategies, mapping your next move, which goes to that one poll question essentially. And then this is the entire calendar of events, and we're ending just before August begins. That's the idea. So thank you for joining us. I'll stop sharing for a moment. Let's see what time we have. Oh, it's right on the hour. Boy, that's pretty punctual. So sorry, you're just trying to stop sharing, which sounds elusive to me. Okay, great. Panel, thank you very much. This is great. I'll engage with you after this because I think there's more the audience would value from you. And perhaps you can have some of that on the landing page as well. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for attending as well, for joining. Keep the hope going. Okay.
Exactly.
We're going to get through this.
There's some great stories in the chat, and that's exactly right, John. Keep the hope going. And if I can help in any way, and I'm sure if Paula can help, Catherine can help, we will help, because it's difficult. There's lots of pain in that chat coming through today. Lots of pain.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Until next time. Take care.
Bye.
See you.
Take care. Bye-bye.